everybody, it's Liane again at Quilters Cupboard. Welcome to video number 2 of my But Wait, There's More series. I thought it would be fun to share a different tucker ruler with you each month. Some of them you may have seen, some of them you may own, some of them you may have just been thinking about, and maybe I can kind of give you some new ideas, etc. So when I was teaching the Luminous class, today, I was doing the video for block number 2 of that. The wing clipper was a new one that we brought in, and so I thought, perfect tag in. I will tie this in with my But Wait, There's More video and share some things that I've done both old and new with the wing clipper. So it is really cool. For a lot of people, this is the first ruler that they buy in the Tucker series, etc., because flying geese component are so common. We use flying geese for so many different kinds of things. They don't always look like geese. They're star points, they're chevrons, there's all different kinds of things you can do with them. So I just thought I would show you a few that I've had some fun with over the years. So this is a table topper of the Northern Neighbors pattern. And this particular pattern has an amazing maple leaf in it, but it also has a whole bunch of flying geese. So there's a string of flying geese along beside the maple leaf. Of course, there's also flying geese within the maple leaf pattern, but I do love the visual of the strip of flying geese beside the block, whether it be a maple leaf, whether it be a star, whatever you want it to be. It happens to be my version of the Northern Neighbors. It's just a small part of the whole king-size quilt. You can make it super big if that's what you like, or you can go small if that's the kind of thing that you want to do. It's very fat quarter friendly if you want to play with a grouping of fabrics and make the individual maple leaves be different. But I also had some fun and turned one of them into a placemat. So it makes a great size for a placemat. That again can be any kind of block that you want, and a nice strip of flying geese beside it, a border around it, and you've got a great size for a placemat. So kind of continuing on with the theme of placemats, I had another pattern that is called Love Links. This one is all just flying geese, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a couple of them as linked flying geese for, again, placemat size. It's the same size as the other one that I showed you. I could grow it if I wanted to put a little bit of a border on it, but it's also super cute just the way it is. Had some Christmas fabrics that I wanted to be able to show that off in, and this is one of the multitude of sizes that you can do on your wing clipper ruler. How about this is the pattern Love Links that I showed you in the miniature size. This is the smallest size of flying geese that you can do on that particular ruler. 1/2 inch by 1 inch finished flying geese. This little sample is not mine. A very dear friend of mine, Diane, made this, and she's loaned it to me to share with people in the shop and on my video. But again, it is linked flying geese components, and that's what I used for the placemats, or teeny tiny. I have taught this class where people have taken the largest size of flying geese that you can make with the ruler, which are finished flying geese at 5 inches tall by 10 inches wide, and made a lovely, beautiful queen size, no, I would call that king size. The largest quilt here is 104 by 112, and that's definitely a king size kind of quilt. And super modern looking because of the white background with the bright colors, but you could literally do it in anything that you wanted. And lots of flying geese. But when you are using the wing clipper ruler, they all turn out perfectly. You've got the seams where you want them to go. You've got one ruler that trims all the different sizes, right from the teeny tiny baby ones all the way up to the biggest one. Super cute to be able to work with. I also took the wing clipper, and last month's video was the tucker trimmer, and we had a new pattern come into the store, and it's called Switchback. So this pattern is available for projects in 3 sizes, a small, a medium, a large. The small is 12.5 by 45. That's what I've got here. The large is 25 by 90. That make a fabulous bed size, kind of table, or bed runner rather. So this is a combination of flying geese that make this chevron kind of look here. These are all flying geese ones that don't have more than 2 colors in it, and there's combination units that the Tucker trimmer does and creates this very cool zigzagging kind of effect. Love the look of that. Again, if you change the size of the flying geese and the size of the combination units, you could get an amazing bed runner size quilt, or you could do several rows of this within a quilt and make it much bigger. Keep the size of the geese the same if you want, just multiply the number of rows and get yourself a bigger quilt. So one of the new patterns from Studio 180. I wanted to suggest that you take a good look around the Quilters Cupboard website. We have some very cool new things that we've added, Studio 180 wise. There's always new stuff going on the website, of course. Every stuff that comes, all the things that come in, all the new fabrics and new patterns, etc. But even within the Studio 180 area, we have boosted up and put some new patterns, some new design sheets, all kinds of things on there. If you haven't been on the website for a while, take a good look because there's some new things. Speaking of things that have been added onto the website, we have also added back on some of the Tucker University design sheets that we didn't have in stock anymore. So the Tucker trimmer, the wing clipper, the V-block, the square squared, the corner beam. I think all of those we were out of stock, so we've ordered some of them back in again. These are the design sheets where they come from Tucker University. They walk you through the sizes to cut for a standard size of component block, give you some amazing block ideas that utilize the ruler of the month, and give you some ideas of blocks that you can pull together into your own sampler kind of quilt, or you could make multiples of the same block and have whatever size of quilt that you want. It's a really cool kind of process. I had a lot of fun teaching Tucker University through the store a couple of years ago, and a lot of people signed on, and that was really cool. We had a lot of participation and had so much fun with it. And I just thought I would show you some of the blocks that I had made with those particular classes and the rulers that we were talking about. So this is using the Tucker trimmer. I didn't have these with me last month to show you, but using the Tucker trimmer for the hourglass units. And there's another one here. I love how the hourglass units and the shaded 4 patches create very different kinds of looks. These are blocks that are all featured on the back of the design sheets. So here's another one. Again, hourglass units, shaded 4 patches. When you change up the colored placement, it changes what you are looking at, what your eye sees. Here's a version of combination units in the middle with flying geese around the edge. Creates a very nice framing. Here's another one that's got flying geese with shaded 4 patches, square squares in the middle. That's the square within a square that's in the middle of the block. Is a really nice center. It's a really nice way to ground the center of your block. And we did cover that last month in our Luminous program, so the gals are familiar with how to use that particular ruler now. Maybe that's one that you've got in your toolbox at home as well. It's a really cool block in the center of your blocks. Here's another idea for flying geese with a square squared in the middle, and they're creating a chevron on the sides with star points from the bright purple. These are corner beam components, but I really do like the look of the different flying geese components right there that create a very different kind of look in your block. So just a sampling of some of the blocks utilizing the first 2 rulers that I've chatted about, your Tucker trimmer and the wing clipper, both of which are rulers that we have used in the Luminous program. and will continue to use. There'll be more of them coming up in more blocks. I would like to mention as well that if by chance you weren't aware that we were doing the block of the month, the Luminous quilt program, there's still the ability for you to sign up if it's something that you're interested in. The videos that I'm creating can be watched after the fact by people in the program. You can watch it as many times as you want, or if you're late coming to it, you are more than welcome to start a little bit later and catch up at your own speed. And we do also have the pattern available for sale if you want to work on it on your own with your fabrics at home, etc. You're more than welcome to. It's on our website as well. Okay, I've got a couple more things to show you. Okay, so a couple more things to show you with flying geese. Remember the placemats that I was showing you that were in the Northern Neighbors pattern? Well, I had some fun creating some different looking placemats. Don't have them quilted, obviously. I'd only just made them last weekend, but I had some fun with a large scale print and rows of flying geese that create a very cool chevron kind of look. I got a kick out of doing those, and you can certainly make the placemat whatever kind of size that you want. This worked really well with the size of the flying geese that I were making. They're finishing at 2 inches by 4 inches. So when I pulled together 7 of them in a row, it made for a 14-inch high placemat. So 14 by 18 was a great size, and I thought it would be fun to kind of mix up the different strips of the geese that I'm putting along the edge. So those ones are making chevrons. I've got another version of them here that, depending on where you're sitting, are the geese flying up or are they flying down? Where do you like the extra strip of your flying geese? And alternating between lights and darks. Or what if you want to have these ones have sort of a dark background and different colored geese. Or here's another version where they're all different kinds of fabrics and running through again with a light background. It looks quite a bit different from the ones that I made in the other 2 versions. Have some fun. You can have all 4 or all 6 in your set be a different version of flying geese. I have a little strip of them here that I thought, well, I could do them with, again, different kinds of chevrons going through the fabric on the side, just with different groupings of them, etc. So mix them up kind of a little bit. Now think about what else you can do with your flying geese. We have had a couple of other patterns in the store that we've done different things with, one of which was a pattern called Simple Simon, and it was one of our Stash Pot Pie patterns. And it was a case of 4 flying geese, and they are sewn around a center block with just a little bit of a partial seam, and I did 4 different kinds of versions here. So whether you have the same fabric as your background, whether you go with a different one, my flying geese still came out as 4 that were all the same, but then what if you change up the center? How different does that make that look? Or what if you make them mirror images of each other and sew them together as mirror images? So now I've got a strip of them. I can make a whole long row of them. I can do all different kinds of things with them. I thought that was such a cool effect. Change them up, make it really scrappy and have all different kinds of colors. That's another one of our Stash Pot Pie patterns, is using the flying geese in this particular layout. So lots of fun to be able to mix them up and do different things with them. They're not just for geese in just a regular row. Something else to do with your flying geese is I found an amazing pattern, a Quilt of Valor pattern, and it's called Love My Hero, and loved the look of this a lot. And I thought this would be so much fun to be able to do with a bundle of fabrics that we got into the store. And this is a bundle of fabrics called Daybreak. And we have a lovely little half-meter bundle of these, and there's 15 fabrics in the collection. So we have a half-meter bundle of a half-meter cut of each and every one of them in the bundle. So you could say I have the whole collection and be able to create something with that. It was an amazing grouping, and so I had some fun turning my bundle of the half meters into blocks from this particular pattern called Love My Hero. And it is a combination of some half square triangles, some flying geese, and some square and square blocks. So I just started working on these. I paired a couple of different colors together from my bundle, and I'm loving how they are turning out. Again, the pattern is called Love My Hero, one of the free online Quilt of Valor patterns that you can get access to. And so just to be able to change up the look of them, I love how the flying geese sewn onto the top of the squared block, there's the flying geese, and some half square triangles. It's going to be a gorgeous quilt, and I'm using all 15 of the different fabrics within my blocks. So I have a few breakout pieces to show you so that it can help to give you an idea of what's involved in some of the components. Again, this is from the Daybreak line of fabric. We've got the whole bundle of them here, and I have some pieces here to share with you. So I've got a lovely little display board here, and I want to walk you through what we're doing with all the different pieces. So if we're looking at the flying geese, the method for us to make flying geese that I'm talking about is the case of you've got a square that is a large square and 4 small squares that is going to give you 4 flying geese at a time. So you're going to be taking the large square and sewing 2 small squares onto it. You're going to run a stitching line on either side of the center of your corner to corner, and then you're going to cut that apart. You're going to then have 2 separate pieces that you're going to sew square number 3 and square number 4 onto. I'm going to move these off to the side just a little bit so that I can show you. So I'm going to take this little piece here, and one thing I really want to stress to everybody, when you are using the wing clipper ruler and you're going to be sewing pieces like this, you want to make sure that you leave a little tiny bit of fabric that peeks around the edge of the small square that you've added. That's what's going to give you some wiggle room to be able to have enough room to trim your pieces when you have sewn all of the 4 pieces together. So I took that piece that I had, cut it in half down the center, and then you're going to take those pieces and you're going to press them out, and you're going to get these little pieces that look like this. You're going to get 2 of these guys, and then you're going to be able to take one of your square number 3 and sew it on this way, and square number 4 and sew it on this way. And so you've got a couple of pieces that look like that. Then you're going to take each of those. I've again sewn 1/4 inch on either side of the center line. So you're going to cut these guys apart as well. There's one set, and then these guys, and this is the second set. And you're going to press them out as well. So now we've got 4 pieces here, and when you press your corners out, you can see how you now have a flying goose component, oversized a little bit, but that's what gives you room for trimming, because then you're going to come in with the wing clipper tool and you are going to, I moved my piece of glow line tape based on the size that I'm working on, because what you want to do is you want to be laying your ruler over top of your flying goose component, and you want the lines on the ruler directly over top of your stitching lines. Because we've tugged the little squares down a little bit, we have a bit more wiggle room for trimming of those triangles down there. We've got seams going into the corners. We're going to give a quick trim and rotate the unit around. Again, we're going to be able to line it up so that we can have the cleanup lines underneath the lines on the ruler, have the point of our goose right up into the top, and we're going to be able to trim so that it's now perfectly positioned exactly where we need all of the bits to be. And I'm going to have 4 of them from the pieces that I started with. So all of these guys can then be sewn together into the components within that particular block. So there's the flying goose part. If we look at the square and a square part, we're going to start with a precision cut square in our square squared block. We're going to have triangles that come from a specific size based on the finished size that we're making. We're going to sew opposite colors on opposite sides, press those ones out. Then we're going to come back in with opposite colors on opposite sides, so that now we have two colors on one side, two colors on the other sides, and that gives us the star points that we're then going to be able to trim our square squared block down precisely with the lines that we're looking for on that particular block. If this is a 4-inch finished block, we know we're going to be able to trim up and across. We've got all of our seams positioned exactly where they need to be, directly underneath the lines on the ruler. Lift the ruler, rotate the block, give it a spin around. Again, we've got the lines positioned where we need them to be, exactly where we need them to go. If I am a left-handed quilter, I'm going to hold the ruler in a slightly different position. The ruler is going to be vertical, but I'm still going to look at the same lines. I'm still going to have my 4-inch X's right on the corners, and I'm going to be able to trim up the side and across the top. I can see straight away that I've got enough fabric to be able to trim all the way around and have that block be positioned exactly where I want it to go. And there are some half square triangles in the block. Half square triangles that are easy peasy to oversize and then trim them down with your tucker trimmer. If we want these to be trimmed down to 2.5 inches, I'm going to be looking at the 1/2-inch increment line around my tucker trimmer, and I'm going to trim it. I'm going to line it up so that that particular size line is on my stitching line. Trim around one corner, up the side, and across the top, and rotate it. Trim it around again. Trim again, up the side, and across the top. So then all of my half square triangles are now all 2.5 inches. They're going to fit together with the 2.5 by 4.5 flying geese, and they're going to fit together with the 4.5-inch trimmed square and a square blocks. So then when we want to put the rows together, I have some of that to show you as well. Hang on. Okay, so I have laid out on the table here the pieces that will make the block that I was showing you. Remember, there's a version of the block. So now when you break it down into the pieces that I was showing you, we've got half square triangles that when they're sewn together with some background pieces, we get a cute little 4-patch that looks like this. And then we add a couple of side pieces of background. We get corner components that become these pieces here. We've got our square and a square blocks that when they're sewn together with the flying geese, matching colors, we get a chevron kind of effect. And the opposite colors create the star contrast in the center there. Sew your rows together, and sew your rows to each other. And before you know it, you have got yourself a stack of beautiful blocks from a bundle of fabrics called Daybreak, or any bundle of fabrics, any kind of fabrics that you want to work with, whether they be batiks or whether they be cottons or anything like that. It's just really cool to be able to play with the rulers that we've got. Although I will share with you that the pattern is written with regular instructions in it. So building regular 4 flying geese at a time, no oversizing, no trimming capability, but you don't have to have the ruler if you want to follow exactly on the pattern. But you can still get the fabric and get the same kind of look. Half square triangles, cutting exactly size, no trimming, but the instructions are in the pattern there for you. Same thing with the square and a square block, starting with a square with some folded corners as opposed to precision cutting the center and having the ability to trim the extra around the outside edge. So a really pretty block to be able to make, whether you're using the Tucker rulers or whether you just want to use a bundle of fabric that you have found that you really like the looks of. Hang on, that's not all. I have something else. That's the but wait, there's more again coming into play. Hang on. Okay, something else to do with your wing clipper is something called Pickets and Quickits. So this is a technique sheet that Deb Tucker has created to use with the wing clipper. As with all of her technique sheets, it shows the ruler up in the top corner, which ruler you'll be working with to create something different. And there are different sizes to give you ideas on here. There are different block kind of ideas, and the instructions to be able to walk you through. In this particular case, there are 2 different ways to make a unit called a picket fence. And on the back of this particular technique sheet, there's a pattern that I decided to modify and actually grow it into a square. So for me, it's more like a table topper as opposed to a table runner. So in this particular block, we have got picket fence components around the edge as well as within the block here. I've got some squared blocks here, and I've got shaded 4 patches. So again, all the same rulers that we've been using in our Luminous were used to create the components in this and give a different kind of look. But it's kind of fun to say, okay, I want to be able to make the picket fences without having to just do a folded over corner where you're trimming away 2 layers of fabric. Sometimes you fill the corner all the way, sometimes you don't, sometimes they end up kind of wonky. To be able to know that the points are going to meet at the up and the down and create really nice star points within something like this, I really like, again, the precision of being able to create them in a fashion that they're oversized a little bit and then trimmed away with the ruler. So what I'm going to do is just really quickly walk you through the 2 different methods of making the pickets and quickets with the wing clipper. So what we have is a case of, if you are normally making a picket fence unit, what you'll have on your pattern of instructions is you'll be told to cut your piece 2.5 inches by 4.5 inches, and you'll have a square to put on the corner, and then what you'll need to be doing is actually stitching on your line, folding your square over, hoping like heck that it fills the corner properly, and then you're going to cut away 2 pieces from the back. So you're going to cut away a couple of pieces, and you're going to hope that they've been filled the way that you want them to. But if you instead increase the size just by 1/4 inch, so instead of 2.5 by 4.5, what if instead I cut it 2 3/4 by 4 3/4 and add a little 2 3/4 inch square? So I'm going to still sew it the same way. I'm going to have my angle going on the line depending on which direction I want the angle to be, creating on the block. I'm going to stitch on that. I'm going to still press it out and have it fill the corner. That's what we're looking for, is to have it fill the corner. But I'm going to have some room for trimming. So that's a big, huge advantage for me. I'm going to set these here. I'm going to, now with this particular method, I am still trimming away 2 triangles from the back side, and all you're looking to do is trim away based on 1/4 inch. I can even use my wing clipper, I can use any regular ruler. I'm just looking to trim the triangles to get rid of the extra bulk behind there, and I'm looking to trim them off, and then I'm going to trim down the unit. So I've trimmed away the extra. And these ones I'm making them individually, each one at a time. Then we're going to, actually let's get out the right ruler. How about if we have the wing clipper ruler? I had the wrong one in my hand, oh my goodness. So this way I'm going to look at Normally, I would take the size that I'm creating and I would have that size of the goose over top of both of my stitching lines, like I showed you before. In this case, we just have one of them. So if I'm going to be creating a 2.5 unfinished by 4.5 inch unfinished, I'm looking for this stitching line to be over top of my seam. I want to make sure all the way around my ruler I've got fabric to trim, and I'm going to cut up and over, and then I'm going to pick up the ruler, rotate the unit, and then I'm going to use the cleanup lines that I've got. So the 2.5 by the 4.5 here, I've got a little bit of a line, you can see that little bit there, that's going to sit over top of my stitching line. And I know that by having this nicely squared underneath the lines on the ruler, that's going to be the right size that I'm looking for my picket fence unit. So it's like a one-sided kind of flying goose, isn't it? But I can know that I've got this the same size as this guy to be able to sew them together, and I can have my seams perfectly matched in the center there. Let's see, this is the oversized one going the opposite direction. So if I want to do the same kind of thing, I'm looking for the 2.5 by the 4.5. I can either trim it this way or I can turn the block around and I can trim it where I now have this whole line here over top of my stitching line. And I'd much rather do that. I'd much rather have my first cut where I can see that stitching line going all the way along the whole thing. It's a mirror image of the other one. So I'm going to spin it around, and again I'm now going to have the cleanup lines be nice and straight and true, and I've got that part line to be able to go over top of my stitching line. Give me a comfort level to know that I can trim that down and be able to know that the seam comes right out into the corner and right where it needs to go, so that I can sew that together like that. If that's what I'm looking to do, create some blocks that go up and down like that. Now these are mirror images of each other, but I could have done them all facing one direction. You could do that. You could have a whole row of them all facing the same direction, and that would be fine as well. It depends on the pattern of what you're looking to do. So there is another method, and that is the Quickit method. So on the technique sheet, Deb calls this version that I showed you the Picket method, and then she calls the Quickit method the one that's on the back. And in this particular case, you're looking to have a block that's going to start with it looking very much like a flying goose component. So there is a square that starts the same size as your flying goose component, and you're going to sew one square on. So you're going to take one small square instead of two like we would for flying geese, but again you're going to stitch on either side of the lines that you've drawn there. And then, so this guy is stitched down like this, and then you're going to cut it apart, again, corner to corner on the block. It works out that it's 1/4 of an inch away from each of your stitching line, but let's cut that guy apart. Now you've got two pieces that don't look anything like a flying goose or a picket fence, or what are we going to do with that? One of the advantages that I really like of this particular method is that I can have the seam allowances go either direction. With these other ones that I was doing, you run the risk of the seam allowance always being pressed out towards the outer corner, so that sometimes they don't nest quite as well. If you've got all the seam allowances going out to the outer corner, then you've got a bit of a lump there when you're trying to match them. So with this guy, instead, you can easily flip one of these triangles out to the outer corner, but you can turn around and take the other one and press it underneath so that the seam allowance is now going the other direction. So I'm going to use my fingers to help guide that out. I'm not pressing hard, and I never swish. I never press hard with the iron, but I now have the seam allowances going in two different directions. So then I'm going to take these very unusual looking items and I'm going to do the same thing with the Tucker Trimmer ruler. Sorry, with the wing clipper. My apologies. sucker trimmer was for half square triangles. We're working on flying geese. So what I want to do is, I'm going to take again that common diagonal line, I'm going to put that over top of the stitching line. I'm going to make sure that I have fabric all the way extending beyond the little 2.5 inch line. So I might move that one up just a little bit because I want to have a bit of room for trimming. So it's not very much that we're trimming away, but I want to be able to know that I've got that wiggle room to be able to trim and then lift my ruler, rotate my block around, and I've got the same thing again. Now I have the cleanup lines from what I cut to go underneath my 4.5 by 2.5 inch, and I'm going to be able to trim across the top and up the side, and know that this guy is now the 2.5 by 4.5, and I've only trimmed off one corner instead of two. I've only trimmed off one. And that was another reason why I went backwards on my cut first and then across here. If I had gone straight up, I would have slivered a bunch of the fabric off of my triangle. If I want to save my triangle for making half square triangles, let's at least save the bigger triangle. So it gives me a bit more usable fabric. So there's one of those crazy looking pieces that turned into a perfectly normal looking picket fence unit. So now I've got the same kind of idea on this side. I'm looking for fabric all the way around my ruler and my 2.5 by 4.5 inch size. So I'm going to trim. I want to make sure that that line, it may not extend all the way down, but I can see that that seam's going to come right into the corner with where I'm going to trim for my 2.5 by 4.5 inch size. Got the first two sides done, lift my ruler, rotate the unit. Now I've got the cleanup lines, the 2.5 by 4.5, give the last little trim, up and over. Now I've got, again, mirror images of my picket fence unit with my seam allowances going in opposite directions. So if I want to nest them now, I can. I've got them going in opposite ways, and it makes it real easy to be able to line up with different units. Different colors, if I want to be working with different colors, and depending on whether I'm making V points or peaks like that, lots to be able to do that with and have them nest. So that's kind of really cool. I like that you can create these kinds of units, slightly oversized, like there's not a lot of trimming there, but I know that I've got triangles that I can use for something, but I'd have to be trimming away triangles if I was making them a traditional way. I would have the sizes that I'm cutting in the pattern and then cutting off two triangles instead of just one bigger one. So I have a whole stack of these guys that I'm going to be making and turning into picket fences that I think I will have be a border around the edge of my Love My Hero quilt. So I can use the leftovers from my half-meter bundle and create a really cool looking scrappy border around it. Just a way to be able to bring some more color to the outside edge, and instead of having to buy a whack of fabric that turns into a big border, it's fun to have a pieced border in there to add some color, use up the fabric that we've got, and again, use the rulers that we've got so we can expand the use of them, because I am so all about, but wait, there's more you can do with your tools. I love, love, love the Studio 180 rulers. Love the tools very much. And I almost forgot one more little group of something that I want to show you. Hang on a second. So these are some blocks that I made with the picket fence idea. I forgot all about them. Can you see the picket fence units? We've got picket fences here and here, creating a pinwheel in the center. We've got picket fence units around the outside edge of the block. Each one of them is a little bit different based on the value, but super cute with your picket fences on the edge, creating the pinwheel in, etc. So Just one more thing, they don't have to be all lined up in a row. You can do so much with them. They could easily become components along the side of my placemats. Remember those placemats that I was making with regular flying geese? How about some strips of picket fences as well, just to gussy them up so that each one of them is a little bit different. And I can say I used the same tool, but created very different kinds of looks. So that's my fun for what more you can do with your wing clipper. And I loved being able to share this with you. Thank you very much. I hope that you enjoy learning something a little bit more. Do not forget about all of the videos that Deb Tucker has on her website. Walks you through in a different kind of teaching fashion all of the things that you can do with her tools and her technique sheets. Love them all. Take care, everyone. See you again, and be well. Quilt on. Bye.